Aphyayantu Mangani Vakamashtakshushrotram Atava Vidriyani Chisarvani Sarvam Brahmo Upanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuyam Mama Brahma Nirakaro Anirakarnameyastu Anirakarnameyastu Tadatmani Nirateya Upanishadsu Dharma Ste Mayi Santu Te Mayi Santu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So may all my limbs grow strong, so also my breath, my speech, eyes, ears, and all my organs. All is Brahman, of which the Upanishads speak. May I never turn away from Brahman, may Brahman never turn me away. Let there be no turning away, at least on my side. I am engaged in the study of the self. The Upanishads speak of qualities that one must possess to succeed in such a study. May I acquire those qualities. Peace, peace, peace. So I think last week we read the first couple of verses. And as we mentioned, it is called the Kena Upanishad because it starts off with the first word is Kena, which means by whom. And this is the basic theme of the Upanishad, is by whom, by whose power do the senses work, by whose power does the mind work, by whose power does this universe share. So the disciple asks, he said, by whose will is the mind drawn towards its objects? Who makes the vital breath, the first sign of life function? Ordained by whom do people utter words? Which God directs the eyes, the ears, and the other organs? And the teacher answers that it is Brahman. It, Brahman, is the ear of the ear, the mind of the mind, the speech of the speech, the breath of the breath, and the eye of the eye. Therefore the wise, giving up the notion that they are associated with these organs, depart from this world, in other words, renounce this world and become immortal. Okay, and the commentary of that verse says that the real power behind the sense organs is the power of the self. When the self withdraws its power from them, as happens when a person dies, the sense organs cannot function, though they may be otherwise intact. The word preja literally means after death, but in the present context, it means on giving up, on renouncing. What is to be renounced? This apparent physical world, this world of appearance, of name and form, nama, rupa. This is why? Because only by renouncing this world of appearance can we attain that reality, which is Brahman. The issue of Upanishad also advises us, Tena Chaktena Bhunjita. Sustain yourself through renunciation. Through renunciation, we are able to see Brahman underlying this world of sense experience, and we become immortal. This is what the Upanishad conveys, but Prejas Bhava Amrita, Bhavanti. Let us not be deluded by what we see around us. The sense world seems very real to us, and it is also, no doubt, very attractive. But we must remain wise and discriminating. Dhira. Ordained by whom, Ganeshitam, does this world appear to be real? It is ordained by Brahman, who is the underlying of this world. And because Brahman is behind this world, the world appears to be real. Because there is a rope lying on the ground, the superimposition of a snake on it can appear to be real. If you take away the rope, there will be no snake. Similarly, if you take away Brahman, there will be no world. So this is the idea that you find throughout the Upanishads. As you said, is that the basic truth is that Brahman is the only thing that exists. God is the only thing that exists. Everything in this universe that we see, underlying everything is Brahman itself, and that consciousness within everything is actually Brahman's consciousness. And this is what they're talking about when they talk about the Atman or the Self. They, instead of calling it God, they call it Self because that reality is the real self of who we are. Now, in our normal experience, we don't experience ourselves to be that self. What we experience is that we're body and mind, we're in the world, we're interacting with people and situations and things like that. And we're human beings, living a human life. But as we mentioned before, that this body, which makes us aware, which is the instrument through which we become aware of the world, and the mind, which is the instrument through which we understand the world and can kind of appreciate it, those are instruments. The self that they're talking about is the consciousness which is using those instruments. Now normally, when a person gets into religion, when they want to become, be religious, they work primarily on trying to get rid of their vices, trying to improve themselves, trying to develop virtues, more patience, more generosity, things like that. And for most people, this is what's meant to be in religious life. You go to church, you go to temple, and you try to lead a good, moral, ethical life, and gradually you're trying to improve yourself. And gradually you're getting better. And you're becoming a nicer person, and more unselfish, more helpful. And also, then because you're living a good life, you're also getting good karma back. So you begin to have a happy life too. You begin to appreciate things more and more. And you become much more content than you were before. But in all this, you're only becoming a good person. Right? As a person, we can be a bad person. We can be a really bad person, like Hitler or somebody, or we can be a good person, or we can be a really good person, like say Mother Teresa or some person like that, but we're just a human being. But we become a good human being instead of a bad human being. Now, in order to know the truth, to get to the higher truth, then you have to be able or willing to go beyond just being a good human being and actually wanting to know God as He is in reality. And this is, like I said, very difficult. For most people, if they have a good, comfortable life, basically a reasonably pleasant, successful life, they're happy with that. And they don't really want, or anything more. And they're content with that, and then they'll go to some heavens, sometimes spend time there, be happy there, and then they'll come back, take on another birth, and so forth. And many people, this is what they want. They want to have a good kind of family life, a good religious, moral life, and a good place in society, and live a kind of a pleasant, enjoyable life. It's said that sometimes, and most people, they're not really yearning to know God. You remember how deeply Shyama Krishna yearned for the vision of Divine Mother. It obsessed him kind of night and day. Mother, when you appear to very few people actually worry about that so much. Yes, you're trying to be good, you're trying to be happy and so forth, but the fact that you haven't actually known God, that you haven't seen God, you haven't experienced God, for most people, it's that, okay, that's, eventually we want to do that, but it's not an urgent thing. Now, I said before how when people look at the things in the world, like success and so forth, they're willing to work tremendously hard. People study in school for years, they get graduate degrees, they get a job, they work very hard at the job, many hours, they work overtime, and so on, because they can see the benefits of it. They know that if I can become a success in life, have a nice home, a nice family, and I'll have a nice position in society, they can see there's something concrete here that if I put in the hard work, then I will reap the benefits of it. It's like Olympic athletes or something. they train and work so tremendously hard because they say, oh, I can get a gold medal. And so there's that drive, that intense drive to achieve success, to achieve the goal, and they're willing to put in tremendous amount of sacrifice and struggle and effort in order to achieve it. But when it comes to God, to actually realizing God, then for most people, it's pretty much of a vague, abstract kind of idea. Yes, I know God's there, I know it's the ultimate reality, I know it's infinite and all this, but really there's no kind of feel, no kind of appreciation for it, the way people can appreciate the things in the world, and so it makes our efforts tend to be kind of lukewarm. For most people, like I said, it's enough that if out of religion they'll get a comfortable, a decent, moral kind of, but comfortable life, a reasonably happy life, then they're content with that. They're not troubled by the fact that they haven't actually seen God. And in truth, at any time in human history, I think there's very few people in the world who can actually see God. And this is one of the unique things about Sri Ramakrishna. And I think this is one of the first things that kind of drew me here, was that you had somebody who said, yes, I've seen God. When Swami Vivekananda asked him, sir, have you seen God? He said, yes, I see him just as clearly as you are, only much more intimately. In that way, but that type of direct experience of the ultimate reality has been, throughout the ages, mostly a few mystics, a few saints here and there, but very few of the ordinary people. So this is the kind of big problem in a spiritual life, is that for a long time you tend to be seeking something and you have no idea what it is. You can't really appreciate its value or understand what the benefit is at first, because you just don't know what God is. And when they talk about Brahman and they talk about the self and the infinite nature of every person and all these things, everybody says, yes, that's okay, but it doesn't really mean anything to us. I mentioned before, people appreciate the idea of heaven. How you go to heaven, it's a nice place, you have a heavenly mansion, you have all kinds of wonderful things there, and people can appreciate that. And this is what we talked in the Upanishad about the yajnas, about the worship. How people used to do these yajnas with the idea that through these yajnas I'll get to heaven. And then I'll be in a very kind of enjoyable place and so forth, that people can appreciate. You know, I mentioned before that when I was about 9 years old, I think, I went to a Catholic kind of Sunday school, and one of the projects in the Sunday school was drawing our idea of what heaven was like. And in my heaven, there's a bowling alley. Because at that time, I just got into a bowling league, and I was really enthused about bowling, so that was my idea of heaven. And so basically, this is something most people can appreciate. You ask, what do you want? Well, you can have God, your abstract Brahman, or you can have a nice, bowling alley. And most people will pick a bowling alley. And so, in this way, the idea behind heaven is that I go there and I enjoy it. But in Brahman, they say your personal you're not there anymore. It's like the drop is going back into the ocean. And very few people actually want that, or really can kind of appreciate that. And so the necessity, or the real need in religion is to get some kind of taste for it. And this is the people, they start to do the practice, do yoga, do meditation, things like that, and gradually they're starting to get benefits out of it. They're starting to feel calmer, more peaceful, and gradually a little bit happier and so forth. And so then they begin to appreciate it, and eventually, as they go along with meditation and so on, they may catch a glimpse here and there. That yes, there actually is something there. And this then begins to truly open up the search. And when a person has truly got kind of a solid taste of that reality, Then this is when they say, I want this, and this is when you see people, they forget all about making money or anything else in the world, and all those things become meaningless, and they begin to focus completely on reaching the goal. And so it's usually, for most people, it's kind of a gradual thing. That first, you kind of go through the earlier stages, the preparatory stages, of kind of just going through the practices without much benefit, but then gradually something will begin to click a bit. And then that begins to draw you more and more. Ramakrishna said that we're all like iron filings, and God is like a great magnet. But because our iron filings are covered with dirt and rust and things, because we have so many desires and other things that we want other than God, we don't feel the pull of the magnet. But he said, as soon as you clean off the filings, as soon as you purify your mind a little bit, start to get a little bit more clear, then you begin to feel the pull. And gradually, then that pull becomes like the dominant force in your life. And you look at the lives of the saints and see how intensely they were focused on that one goal, that I have to know God. And this is the secret of attaining spirituality, attaining realization, is you have to want God. Not in order to get something from God. Now most people, with our idea of prayer and our idea of God, he says when we're in trouble, we pray and go, God, please come fix this problem. Or please God, tell me what stock to buy, and things like that. But when the real prayer, and the only prayer that works, is just the desire to be with God. When you have that desire, I actually want to be with you. I want to know what you are in truth, and I want to actually kind of feel your presence. This is in other words, when you want God, and then this is what the prayer that gets answered, that brings results. And gradually, everything else comes. All your other needs, everything you need to have a fulfilled life, it will come, but only as a side effect. As long as you're praying for the effects, as long as you're praying, oh, I need a better job, or I want this, or that, then you're not connected. But if you can once get the connection, you find that everything else will begin to just flow without any effort on your part. It's just through the grace of God. And this then, but it's only when you want to be with God. And this is then, like I say, something that a person gradually gets drawn into. At first, when we first started practicing, the main idea is I'm here, I'm this human being, and maybe I'm not satisfied, I'm not happy enough, so I want to get a little more peace, a little more contentment, and a little more, I want to become a little more spiritual. And so for a long time, the focus is still on me, on what I'm getting out of things. Am I getting happiness out of it? Am I getting some peace, enjoyment, some sense of improvement? And like that, it goes on for some time. But the real kind of breakthrough comes when you forget yourself, when you get so absorbed in thinking about God, or thinking about the Spirit or the higher truth, that you forget yourself. And this is that when the higher reality, the higher self, can come in. As long as you are kind of focused on what am I getting out of it, and so that means you're attached, connected with these instruments, body, mind, the sense of personal self, and so that's where you're kind of staying. But when you forget yourself from that, and that can happen in any moment of intense concentration. Like a person, if they could be playing a really intense game of tennis, and I usually find that afterwards they feel there's kind of an upliftment about it, because for a while they've dropped that whole burden of all their problems, everything else, and they've just been focused on playing the game. In that way, a glimpse of this self-forgetfulness comes. What it means is that you forget, for a moment, you forget the small self, and then the big self is there. As soon as you let go of the small self, then you'll see, oh, here's the big self. As long as you're holding on, identifying with the small self, then you won't get the full experience, but you'll get benefits out of it. You'll get like gradual improvements and things like that. So this is the basic theme of this Upanishad. You said behind the senses, behind the functioning of the body, behind our own personal life, is this presence of the infinite Brahman as the only reality, the only consciousness, the only being in the universe. And what we're trying to do is to ultimately connect with that and then let it manifest through us. Because each and every individual, we're like a idea in the mind of God. We're like an expression of God. And we have a certain destiny, a certain nature that we're trying to express. And we're here actually for a spiritual purpose. But most of it's like souls, we do that. But then we come down here and we totally forget what we're here for. And then we go off running all kinds of crazy directions and don't accomplish anything that we were planning to. But behind it, behind our life, there is a divine presence. And the more you can connect with that, and the more you can start to surrender to that, the more it will begin to function in your life, and the more things will flow and express as they're meant to. So this is kind of what we're all trying to do, consciously or unconsciously. Everybody is searching for God, but they don't know it. They call it searching for happiness, or searching for power, or searching for knowledge, or for wisdom. All the time, what they're really searching for is to be with God again. Because in God, in Brahman, everything is there, everything is included. And but as long as all your attention is focused outside yourself, towards the external world, towards the event of everyday life, then you're not aware of it. Now, for the great majority of people, as you mentioned, it's very difficult and not even desirable to them to actually kind of merge in Brahman or become one with Brahman, but to bring that higher kind of consciousness, that higher reality, to start to bring it into your daily life is usually a kind of a start to things. And this then can bring about great transformations in the way we experience, what we experience. Our life can be tremendously miserable, or it can be tremendously happy, depending upon the state of our mind, the state of our consciousness. And so, as you begin to elevate, reach a higher state of consciousness, then everything in your experience starts to become transformed. And this is the idea that we expressed before, is that happiness is something you are, not something that you get. As long as we're looking outside ourselves, trying to find satisfaction and happiness and so forth outside through other people or through other situations and events, then we'll always be somewhat frustrated and we'll never find what we're seeking. But when you can begin to find the happiness within yourself, then you'll begin to, you'll discover that once you start to find some balance, some peace, some happiness within yourself, then all your experiences become happy. And this is the thing, most people think, if I had $1 million, I'd be so happy. If I lived in a nice condominium, then I'd be happy. And like the way all people think, if only I could get this thing, then I would be really happy. But the idea is that the happiness is there. You have to find it within yourself, and then you'll see that all your experiences in life will be happy. A person who's really got that happy, even in the very difficult situations, they become just a game to them. They're not they don't cause any misery at all. And so like that, it could be tremendous transformation, changes in the way we experience life, depending upon the state of our consciousness. All the way from being totally miserable to beginning to be very kind of happy, and then gradually seeing the opening up of the infinite divinity of God, which is always right here where we are. There's never any separation. There's never, that God has never abandoned us or left us. He's always right here where we are. We have to be aware of it. And so studying the scriptures like the Upanishad, thinking about these things, is the first step. It's called Shravana, hearing the truth. If we didn't have these books, if we didn't have these classes, most of us would never ever think, oh, I bet I'm actually Atman, I bet I'm actually spirit. No, we would just go through our daily life, like animals, and not realize there was anything else. And so, like that, you need to hear the truth, and then, manana, you need to think about it. You need to begin to think in those terms. And this is what spiritual practice is. Instead of reacting to life and everything in terms of just whatever comes kind of out of the subconscious, you begin to actually put in a kind of a higher viewpoint of things. And one way is to keep a part of yourself always kind of centered, always within, always with a sense of, okay, I'm actually in my kind of shrine with God, and so forth. The other way is to begin to realize that even though I see the world there, I see people, I have my job, I have my activities that I have to do, my duties, even though I'm involved in these things, if you begin to cover them with God, if you begin to realize that all the time I'm actually dealing with God, I'm in the presence of God, and everyone I see is actually God in a different form, then your whole attitude, your whole experience begins to be transmuted into something very high and gradually very spiritual. So this is Kena Upanishad. So let's go to the next verse. Now, tatra chakragachati na vagachati no mana na vidmo na vijanimo yataita danushishya. The eye does not reach there, nor does speech, nor the mind. We do not know how a teacher can possibly explain it to a disciple. We do not know. So Brahman is beyond the grasp of our sense organs. We cannot speak about it. It is infinite, so vast that even the mind cannot comprehend it. Hence the teacher says, na vidmaha, na vijanamaha. We do not know, we do not know. Why don't we know? Because Brahman is not an object of knowledge. We can know an object, but we cannot know Brahman, because we ourselves are Brahman. We can know something that is separate from us, but we cannot see our own self. Brahman is always the subject, never the object. In fact, Brahman is all that exists. The distinction between subject and object is imaginary. So this is a part of kind of the spiritual knowledge of Jnana, which is difficult for most people to grasp, I think. The idea that Brahman is the mind of the mind, the eye of the eye, the eye can't go there, the ear can't go there. And the reason for that is because the body, the senses, the mind, the intellect, all of these things are kind of projected out of Brahman. Brahman is underlying all of these things. And it is, as I say, it's the pure subject. Now this is kind of philosophical. But the idea, and this is what I understand, is that you can't know Brahman. Because knowledge means there's something there that you know, and you sit here and you say, okay, I know that. Whereas Brahman is not an object that's outside, like a chair or a person or anything else. It's not something that you look at and say, okay, I know that. Now you can read a lot of books about Brahman, a lot of books about Vedanta philosophy and things like that, and have a lot of knowledge in your head, but what you have is just ideas or concepts about Brahman. It's not Brahman. It's not the reality of Brahman. And this is the distinction between a pundit, a scholar, who may know a tremendous amount of knowledge about the scriptures, and the realized soul. The only way you can know Brahman is to be Brahman. Or more correctly, to let Brahman be you. And that is a totally different thing. And, you know, there's a Zen story that I quoted before, that once there was a professor of philosophy in Japan, and he went to visit a Zen master. And when he got to the Zen master invited him to the appointment, we had a cup of tea. And so then the Zen master began pouring the tea, and he just kept pouring and pouring. And pretty soon he was coming out of the cup and spilling on the table and going onto the floor. And the professor, he began to shout, he said, "Can't you see the cup's full? Why do you keep pouring into it?" And then the Zen master said, "Well, I see, your mind is so full of your knowledge that there's no room for any Zen." So like that, we think the person who, and this is the Gita, says, you know, that he who knows knows not. He who knows not knows. In other words, the person who says, oh yes, I know all about Brahman, I know all about God, he doesn't know. Now he's got a lot of ideas, so a lot of concept in his mind, but it's not Brahman. You know, now Swami Varadananda, so some of you know the name. He was the general secretary, one of our great general secretaries in the order. Later on became president of the order. Actually did one of these versions here. Did this translation here. Did other Brahma Sutras. A number of other translations. One of the great scholars. And then there are some of the greatest scholars, the one who did the kind of most translations, things like that in the order, have also been general secretaries, who are the busiest people in the order. So it's quite amazing that. And you know, they say that if you want to get a job done, give it to the one who's already got 100 jobs, because he'll get it done. Whereas one guy who's only got 3 jobs, he won't get your job done either. Something like that. Somehow the general secretaries, who are the busiest people, the greatest responsibilities in the order, they can also be the greatest scholars. So he was one of the great scholars in the order and so forth. But when he became president later on, he became more or less silent, wouldn't talk hardly at all. And people would ask him to give a talk, give a speech or something, and he would just say, I know nothing, I don't know anything. He was a great scholar, but he was saying, I don't know anything, because he was in that Brahman consciousness. So this is something that's, again, very high and very difficult to grasp, because it's very much different than an ordinary human experience. But it's known by the mystics, and it's known by the saints that the true knowledge, the only way you can truly know about God is to be taught of God, to have the revelation begin to become from within, and then that draws you into it until you reach the point where you become one with God, and then you realize you're just it, you're just Brahman. Another one of our great scholars, some of you know Swami Varadananda, who was with Swami Varadananda down in Sydney, in Australia. Did you hear recently that he had passed away? Yeah. Anyway, somebody remarked to him that when he was, he's getting ready to go into Bellarmine, back to Calcutta, and so somebody asked him, said to him that, I'll see you in Calcutta. And Swami Varadananda responded and said, I'll see you everywhere. And that's, I mean, his consciousness was no, and you know, he voluntarily left the body, you know, which is monks, realized souls can do that, you know, that they just went into the Ganges and just dropped the body, because it wasn't needed anymore. And so like that, this ultimately is potentially within each and every person, that infinite consciousness, but very few people can attain it, and very few people want it, because it means when you're everywhere, you're not this particular person doing what you want to do and achieving what you want to achieve, and so it's very difficult. So for most people, somehow you begin to make a connection, so and then slowly that grows. So your meditation, your study. You're thinking all these things slowly, and you're wanting to at least experience God, have some presence of God. And this is slowly then, everything else will develop out of that. But as long as you're just reading books, and you're saying, oh, I know everything, I don't need anything else, then you won't, you're not yet kind of on the spiritual path. You may be religious, you may be very good and moral, but you're not yet spiritual until that desire comes, that I actually want to begin to know what God is. So then verse 4 says, Anya Deva Tavidi Tato Avitadadi Iti Shushkruma Purveshamye Nasta Tva Chakshashire. Says that Brahma is different from all known familiar objects. It is beyond even unknown objects. This is what we heard from the ancient ones. In other words, the teachers who explained it to us. So in this world, there are objects that we know something about, and there are objects that we know nothing about. But the knowledge of Brahman is unique. It is beyond both of these categories of objects. It is self-knowledge. This knowledge cannot come from books, and it is not like mathematics, which a teacher can explain and you will understand. The knowledge of Brahman is something that flows from the teacher to the student. They say it is like lighting one lamp by another, and it is a revelation that comes all of a sudden. One cannot explain it. You may have a good intellect and vast scholarship, but even then you may not know Brahman. The Upanishads say, prepare yourself. When you are ready, the teacher will give you the knowledge. He will tell you who you are. Yet this Upanishad also says that Brahman is incomprehensible. You cannot know it because it is your own self. First, you must clear the ground and prepare yourself. Then, all of a sudden, the revelation will come and you will realize yourself. So that self, that true self, is always there. It's always who we are, what we are, but simply we're not aware of it. And like I said, most of the people, when they're trying to be religious, or in fact, they're basically trying to be better people, and so forth. And in that way, you know, they actually try to become more perfect, you know, and then slowly you're making progress. You're moving up and you're having higher experiences, better experiences. But on the other hand, realization, though, is something completely different. As a kind of a struggling spiritual aspirant trying to become a better person, you have ups and downs. You'll go through periods where everything seems to go good, and then suddenly things will fall down, and then again they may go good for a while. And like that, it's always kind of changing, always kind of flexible. And the more better you become, then the more kind of light it begins to come in. But when you realize the self, or realize God, then it's just like an instant transformation. It's not you become a little better and then some power or things come, but it's like a transformation. It's more like waking up than like achieving some kind of goal. And so it's like when you're asleep and you're dreaming, the dream world is real for you. And you know, in that dream you may be having a nightmare. It may be a tiger chasing you, and you can't escape from it. But then you wake up, and now everything's different. You're like, oh, wow, that was a dream. I thought I was being chased by a tiger, but it was just a dream. This is real. This is the real world now. And there's no tiger, there's no problem, anything else. In the same way, as we go through our kind of personal struggles and development, we go through ups and downs, and struggles and problems, things like that. Times of doubt, times of depression, and other. But then suddenly it can come, and then everything's transformed. Everything's changed. You're not a human being anymore. You're spirit now, and your spiritual consciousness, and you know, oh, this is what I've always been. I've always been with God. I've never been anywhere else. And then everything becomes completely transformed. And so this is this idea is it's different than known or unknown. Some things you know, so like I said, some things you can get out of books and you can say, okay, I know that. Some things you don't know. I don't know, what's going on in China or here or there, and it's just not that there's not knowledge there to be gotten, but just I don't have the knowledge. So there's knowledge that I have, that I know, and things that I don't know. Whereas they say Brahman is different though, because Brahman is not an object that you can know. It's something that has to be, you have to be. And that's the only way you can know it, is to be it. And this is the deepest knowledge there is. You find this also in the yoga, in practices and things. Is that when there's sufficient depth, a person has capacity to identify with things, to actually kind of be things. And this then is a much higher type of knowledge than looking at something from the outside and then forming an idea about it. And so, in other words, when you look at another person, and maybe the person very close to you, in your family and so on, and you know, I know that person. But actually what you know is the concepts that you have formed in your mind about that person. And those concepts may have more to do with you than the person. If you're a kind of a devious person, you look at the other person, oh, they're devious too. And like that, you tend to form your ideas, your knowledge of the person based largely upon your own self and your own kind of state of mind. And then you project that onto the person. The person does something, and you'll project a motive that never even crossed his mind, that he never even thought of. And this can go to extremes of people who are kind of unbalanced, where people's paranoia or things, or see threats and all kinds of negative kind of things when nothing at all is there. So if we were to actually tell anybody, oh, this is what you are, and say, no, I'm not like that at all. I'm nothing like that at all. You don't know me. You don't know what I'm like inside. And like that, so as long as we're on the outside, all we can do is form concepts which to a large part are our own kind of projections. But to actually know something, you have to know it from the inside. And when a person attains knowledge of Brahman, he's actually on the inside of everything. And the substrate on the inside of everything, and he's become one with everything. And so, see, as an individual, we're one with one particular person. One particular body mind is, but as Brahman, you're one with everything. And so, in this way, it's much different, intuitive, kind of direct experience of truth, rather than a rational thinking about it, or You know, it's like in science. They observe certain things happening, they think about it, and then they develop laws. So this is why it happened. This is what will happen, and so forth. But they're always kind of on the outside observing it. But when you become one with things, then there's a state where you just know things. You know the truth because it comes to you from within. It's not something you figure out. Anything you figure out through reason is not the truth. It's a very limited kind of type of truth. And the higher truth, the real truth, it comes as like inner revelation that just comes to you. And without any kind of logical, rational process, it's coming from the deeper kind of consciousness within, and it's possible for anybody eventually, through meditation or so on, to start to kind of connect with that type of higher knowledge. You know, Swami Varadananda has said that after a certain stage of development or practice, that your own mind becomes the guru. Now, at first, you can't trust the mind very much because it's got a lot of things in it, a lot of things are subconscious and all. But a person who goes deep enough, then they'll begin to get kind of guidance through their own inner resources. And this guidance, this protection, the love, the wisdom, the power, all these things are there within us, available to us. If only we can begin to kind of connect. And the way to do it is to start to depend more on what's within rather than depending always on what's outside, which is kind of external to this inner reality. So they say, yeah, the true teaching that comes from the teacher to the disciple is like lighting a lamp. And this is what a guru is. It's like in this world, we all have lamps, we're all carrying our own lamp, but none of our lamps are lit. Now the guru is one who's touched God. He's connected, and now his lamp has become lit. And then he has the capacity to light other people's lamps. And this is what's meant by true spiritual teaching. It's not just giving a lecture or a talk or writing a book about things. It's actually that direct kind of communication of the higher consciousness. But that can only come when the teacher's qualified, has the ability, and also when the student has the ability. If the student is not ready for it, it won't happen because the student has to be receptive. Otherwise, the student has to actually want it before it can work. It's like Sri Ramakrishna, had tremendous spiritual power. He could give any kind of experience to somebody, anybody, from samadhi to moksha to anything. He could give any experience by mere touch. But he rarely did it because most people didn't want it. And so this is the human nature. God is all there, always there. He's always available to us. He's not far away. He's always completely available to us. But most people are so kind of distracted and involved in other things that they don't really want it. And so they don't get it. Okay. So we stopped here. We got through a couple more verses here. Any questions on what we covered here? Okay, so right now, today, Swami Varadananda, he's down at the University of Illinois down in Urbana-Champaign doing a program there. Yeah, earlier he got back. He went to Austin and Dallas, and also down to Alabama. So like that, he's been traveling lots. So he'll be getting back late tonight. Then tomorrow he's got his program at the Hindu temple. He gives a talk there at 11:30 on India Eternal. And then on the afternoon he does a Skype class with some groups of students, I think up in Ann Arbor or something. And then we've got our board meeting coming up 5 minutes. But the Shivananda is not going to be until the following Saturday. And then Swami Varadananda, he'll do the regular Sunday service on why we should meditate, which is the yoga exercise. And then next week, next Sunday, it's around Ganesh Chaturthi time, but we will have Swami Varadananda from Chinmayananda Mission. Swami's invited him to come give a talk on Ganesh. You remember we had Brahmachari Kriyananda from the Kriya Yoga Center last month to do on Rakshabandhan. So now Swami Varadananda will come and give a guest talk on Ganesh. That'll be, I think, on the 13th or 14th. 14th. Om Asato Ma Satyamaya Tamso Ma Jyotirgamaya Viturma Amitam Kamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Oh Lord, lead us from darkness to light, lead us from the real to the real, lead us from darkness to light, and lead us from death to immortality. Oh, peace, peace,